of caution. She thought the Russians were asking questions about her husband, though, not about her. They talked to each other in their own language for a moment. Louisa didn't know any Russian, though Gustav had. They both drew their pistols at the same instant and pointed them at her. The one who spoke German said, "You are under arrest. Come with us. Immediately." "What?" she blurted. She understood him all right. She just didn't, or didn't want to, believe him. "I haven't done anything." That was true, too. True or not, it did her no good. The Russian slapped her in the face. "Immediately, I said," he snapped. "Come now, or you will be even sorrier later on." Numbly, she preceded him and his silent chum down the stairs. The slap didn't hurt her so much as it left her stunned. Whatever Gustav did in the war, he'd never laid a hand on her like that. No one had, not so callously, as if she were nothing but an animal that needed a smack to get it going. She was going all right, straight into a nightmare. A captured American jeep sat waiting, half on the street, half on the sidewalk. No German would have parked it in such a disorderly way. The Russians had painted red stars on it in place of the white ones the Amis used. The two officers waved for her to get into the passenger seat. The one who'd been quiet slid behind the wheel. The other fellow, pistol still ready, took the back seat. As they jounced away, he said, "The charge is counter-revolutionary activity." "That's insane," Louisa said. "All I've done is stayed here and tried to keep out of trouble." "We have reason to believe your husband is fighting against a progressive vanguard of the workers and peasants," he said implacably. "This also shows your own political unreliability." "But I haven't done anything," Louisa said again. "What are you going to do to me?" "You will go into the authority of the Chief Administration of Corrective Labor Camps," the Russian officer replied. In German it sounded impressive and bureaucratic, even pompous. The Russian acronym was Gulag. He didn't mention it to Louisa, and it wouldn't have meant anything to her if he had. Whether she knew now what it meant or not, she'd find out. The jeep bounced along. All those tank tracks had torn up Fulda's streets, and no one had bothered fixing potholes. The Russians didn't care what happened to German towns. They didn't bother with jail, they took her straight to the train station. As things turned out, they had what amounted to a jail there, and what had been a storeroom. A bored-looking soldier with a machine pistol guarded the door. But for him, you could walk past it without having any idea it was there. Half a dozen other dejected women stood in there or sat on the floor, that being the only place to sit. A slops bucket in the corner made do for a toilet. Louisa vowed to hold everything as long as she could. She didn't want to have to use it. She wasn't altogether astonished to discover she knew one of the other women the Russians had grabbed. Trudel Bachmann's husband ran the print shop where Gustav had worked. Like Gustav, Max was an old Frontschwein who'd fought the Red Army as long as he could before. "I bet they went off together to play soldiers again," Trudel said bitterly. "I bet you're right," Louisa said. Max had vanished from Fulda at about the same time as Gustav. "And then they left us behind to catch the devil for whatever they're up to." Yes, if Trudel had got her hands on her husband just then, she would have made him sorrier than the Ivans ever could. Or so she imagined, anyhow. Louisa had a better grip on things. They aren't just playing at soldiers, remember. For them it's real, especially if things go wrong. Before Trudel could answer, the door opened again. The Russian sentry gestured with his weapon, "Come out." Warily, the women did. He and a couple of other soldiers herded them to a waiting train. The windows on the cars had bars and shutters on them. The Red Army men stuffed Louisa and her fellow victims into a car that was already full of miserable women. The door slammed behind them with a horribly final sound. A bar thudded down to make sure they couldn't force it. A few minutes later, the train pulled out of the station. All Louisa knew